Welcome to Charts Today. Hi, my name is David Linton, and today, this afternoon, for Thursday, the February of 16th, I'm going to do a review of the Nasdaq 100 and just run through every stock. On Charts Today, each morning, you watch me go through and do this. I can do this on multiple feeds, of course. I often do it on Bloomberg or Reuters, Thomson Reuters Icon. This morning I did it on my DTN feed, which is real time. Got multiple feeds running into the system. It really doesn't matter where the data is coming from with Updata. So um, I like this chart format very much. It's my weekly, my daily, and my 60-minute cloud chart. And to match that, a 1% log scale, a half a percent log scale, and a 0.1% log scale box size. Take a look at the Updata website under training videos if you want to understand how to use these charts more, cloud charts and point and figure charts. But they really are brilliant for giving us a long-term view, a medium-term view, and a short-term view with all the trends and targets. So, and you can apply this template to any list you want. So you could look at pretty well anything you want and apply this same template. So here I look at the stock indices each day. I look at things like the dollar index, currencies. But also what I can do is I can go and grab other lists. Now you can grab this template first of all from the Updata library. So in Updata Analytics, if you've got the IQ feed, depending on what data feed you're running, you just simply click here and you can download the charts today layout. You download that and straight away you're then viewing that in your system. So this is the same layout. Then you might want to apply different lists. So all you have to do is go to the quote screens layout, and in the watch list library, if I go for IQ feed again, there will be a list for all the UK sectors, and also we have the Nasdaq 100 sector here. So you can then apply that same list to the Nasdaq 100 just by downloading that list. And if I open that list, I've got it here. Open straight away. All these prices coming in real time. You can have real time or delayed with DTN. All these prices coming in real time. And what I love about that, of course, is that we're looking at live charts, and it does mean then the 60-minute chart. So if I click on the first one, straight away I get a view. So this is 20th Century Fox, the A shares, and we see here we're above the cloud on the weekly and on the daily. Not quite yet on the 60-minute. We've got some upside targets, one that's activated to 32%, but the others are not yet. So it's bullish medium and long term, but the short term is still not quite through into the bullish territory. And of course the same applies to just the Fox straight shares here. We see that as well. Same picture. We do have an upside target of 4% on the short term chart. You can see how quickly I can go through all 100 shares. So Activision Blizzard had a very big jump recently. That's showing up to new highs on the weekly. So that's all great as well. If we look at the Adobe shares, bullish on all three time frames, we'll see here that lots of tech stocks looking really bullish. And then if we look at Akamai Technologies, not bullish in the short term, but the medium and long term is looking okay. But a lack of upside targets there. Alexon Pharmaceuticals, again, a lack of upside targets. So, and we're below on the long term cloud there, so still not in that long-term trend. Bullish here on all three time frames on Alphabet, which is Google, of course. These are the Class A shares, and we're seeing upside targets all activated. So this is just straight away a better-looking stock just by looking at those 6 time frames. This is the Google Alphabet shares, just Google straight shares, and we're seeing here again lots of upside targets and bullish above all 3 time frames. Amazon again above the cloud, a lot of Nasdaq shares looking like that, awaiting activation of a new target here of 24% upside. We've got a 10% upside that is activated and 6% long term, so that's really interesting as well. And I can just run through these shares really quickly now. So American Airlines, we look at Amgen, we see Amgen's above the cloud on all 3 time frames with upside targets, 7% there long term. Analog devices, 17% upside on the long term chart, and all 3 charts bullish. Apple really powering ahead, 11% upside on the short term chart, and that target was given quite a long way below here, just only a week or so ago. Upside targets there, making new highs. Applied Materials, again, we're above the cloud. Short term, just looking a little bit worrying, coming back below the cloud there. Autodesk above the cloud on all 3 time frames. Upside targets of 22, 24, 23% on the medium term chart. So we're seeing a cluster of targets there. Automated data processing, again, is bullish above all three charts, seeing a recovery in the short-term chart, but quite a lot of volatility in the medium-term chart, just having tested the cloud. Beidou, we're seeing above the cloud on all three time frames, upside targets of 17, 19%, so playing through, and even short-term targets here. It's when it all lines up like that that you start to see the better-looking stocks. And of course, you can go down to 1-minute charts if you really want to trade these stocks intraday with the point and figure targets. Really amazing for doing that. Biogen. We're bearish below the cloud on the long and medium term. Short term, we're above the cloud. So there's a mixed picture there. Biomar and pharmaceutical, again, bearish long term, but medium and short term bullish. So that's interesting. Broadcom, we're above on all three time frames. Upside targets of 8, 9, 10%. They're all pointing to that upside level, which is making that more credible as a target. CSR looking bearish in the short term, medium and long term above the cloud. Computer Associates CA, we see on the weekly chart we're above. Daily chart not quite through, but we do have upside targets of 18% clustering there. Celgen, we're seeing here again, is above the cloud on all three time frames, with upside targets as high as 40, 50% there. So quite interesting for a further look there. Cerner, we're below the cloud on the weekly and 60 on the weekly and the daily, but we're above on the short term, but not many compelling upside targets. Charter above the cloud as well, upside targets there. Checkpoint Software, bullish again above all three clouds, and we're seeing targets short term 11, 6% and long term 6, 16%. Cintas, we see here is above the cloud as well, fewer compelling upside targets. If we take a look at Cisco Systems, we see here that we're really powering ahead on Cisco, really amazing targets to the upside there. Citrix, we're not quite above on the weekly, and the daily's quite interesting there too. Taking a look at Cognizant, we see here we're below the cloud on the weekly. Daily's quite flat, struggling on the 60 minutes, so not a great play there. Comcast looking good on all three time frames, but only one upside target, a lone target of 21.8%, so we'd probably want to see a cluster of targets like this chart. On Costco, we're seeing 27 and 34% in the long term, 12 and 15 in the medium term, and 2 and 4.5% in the short term. So a real confluence of targets pointing to higher prices there. We're seeing the same here on Trip.com, and that's impressive as well. Dentsply, Sonoma's above the cloud on all three, upside targets, but a mixed picture. We've got some downside targets in the long term there as well. Discovery Communications, not yet quite bullish on the long term. Medium and short term are bullish. And we're seeing here on the K shares that we're actually much the same picture as we'd expect. Dish Networks bullish on all three time frames, just turned to long-term bullish with a lagging line through, and some really nice upside targets here on the medium-term chart. Dollar Tree, we see here that we are below the cloud on the medium term. Long term is just wandering below the cloud, so a mixed picture. We got some downside targets as well. eBay bullish on all three time frames, so we're just seeing that again, and some really stellar targets there. 45%, 96% on eBay, so that's really quite something. Electronic Arts, lots of upside targets here as well. Really bullish on all three time frames. You'll see the difference straight away, the stocks that are bullish and not. Here we have the medium term not looking so good on Expedia. Express Scripts bullish on the short term, but not the long and medium term. Facebook looking pretty bullish all round, especially on the long and medium term charts. Fastenal, we're seeing here we've got bullish upside targets as well, and above the cloud on all three time frames. Fiserv, we see here again bullish on all three upside targets, so really good here. Galahad Sciences, we can see here lots of downside targets, both on the medium and long term targets. Not a good looking stock, below the cloud on the long and medium term. Hasbro above the cloud, having jumped on results recently, really still got some upside, but not as big a targets as we've seen on some of the others. Henry Shen, 20%, 40%. We're seeing lots of upside here above the cloud as well. Hologic, we're seeing that as well. Upside targets above the cloud on the long and medium term. Short term, we are just struggling a little bit. Illuma, again, we're below the cloud on the long term, and we're just coming back on the short term as well. Insight, we see that we're above the cloud, and we've got good upside targets here, so you can run right through. Intel, here we see on Intel we're above the cloud on all three time frames, just having tested support in the medium term, and we've got upside targets of 18%, 15%, really running through. You can do this yourself, of course, and just go right through the Nasdaq 100. We see here 17% upside on Intuit on the medium term, 13% that was put in a long time ago on the long-term chart. That was January last year, January 2015. So it's 2 years ago that target was given, and we're running up towards that now. If we look at Intuitive Surgical, we see here we're bullish on all three time frames as well. JB Hunt Transport, again, we're bullish on all three time frames, so that's really positive too. And if we look at JD Sports and Fashion, we see here we're above as well, so that's really quite key. And Cadillac Telnor, we're seeing here as well, we're above. The Kraft Heinz Company, we're seeing again we're just below on the cloud, but bullish on the long and medium term charts. Lam Research, we're seeing here that we're bearish below the cloud in the short term, but long and medium term we're bullish. Liberty Global, again bullish in the short and medium term, but the long term is just a little bit bearish. Same is true, of course, on the A shares below the cloud long term. Liberty Interactive QVC, we see here we've got quite a few downside targets still to play for, bearish below the medium and long term. And Liberty Global, we're seeing that kick upside, and we're seeing that in the ANC shares. Liberty Ventures above the cloud on all three time frames. Upside target activated 44% and 78% is activated, and 76 on the long-term chart. Those two targets together gives us a bit of a cluster. We like to see multiple targets. Marriott International, we see here upside targets as well, bullish on all three time frames, a lot to play for there. Mattel, bearish in the long term and medium term and the short term, so not looking so good. Maximum Integrated Products, we're seeing here bullish on all three time frames, maybe just struggling a little bit short term, but we've got a lot of upside targets here. Microchip Technology, above the cloud on the long and medium term. Short term, we're just a little bit bearish. Micron Technology, much the same. We're above the cloud, but just short term, a little bit bearish. Microsoft, looking good on all three charts. Good upside targets here in the high 20s, 27, 29%. Two different thrust targets. Gives us some security that that target is a good one. Mondelez, we see here pretty flat of late on all three charts. Monster Beverage below on the weekly, long term just turning bearish, short term bullish, but medium term bearish, and downside targets. Mylan, we're seeing again downside in the charts. We're below the weekly cloud, but above on the medium and short term. NetEase we see as bullish on all three. Upside targets of only about 5 and 6%. Netflix looking great, and the medium term we've got targets as high as 46%, but we are just bearish short term. Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, it's not quite bullish in the long term, and Nvidia, my best performing stock last year, just a little bit bearish in the short term at the moment, but still medium and long term the charts are good. O'Reilly Automotive, we're seeing here that the charts are quite bullish above the cloud. On the daily, we're just a little bit below, so that's quite key, and we're just heading below on the 60-minute. PACCAR, we're above the cloud on all three time frames. Upside targets of 32% on the long-term chart and 9% on the short-term chart. Paycheck is above the cloud on all three, having just turned bullish in the short term, 5% upside in the short term, so that's quite good. PayPal above the cloud on all three again, and upside targets as high as 43, 48%, so that's good. Qualcomm is actually bearish in the medium term, so quite a mixed picture there. Regeneron Pharmaceuticals were actually below in the medium term, but below in the long term and the medium term, so that's not a great looking chart. Ross Stores is bullish on all three time frames. We've got targets on the long term here of 42 and 68%, 43%, so that's looking pretty good. SBI Communications, we're seeing here bullish on all three time frames, just recovering in the long term, so that's looking pretty good, but a shortage of good targets to the upside. Seagate Technology, again a long term recovery, 22% upside target on the medium term, but it is a lone target. We're not seeing lots there. Shire below on the medium and long term charts, so again a mixed picture there. Cyrus, we are bullish on all three charts with good upside targets, 11.4% here, 9% upside on the medium to long term. Bullish here as well on Skyworks above all three clouds and upside targets. Starbucks bullish on all three charts as well. Upside targets as high as 38%, so still more, 30%, 34%, that one not yet activated. Semantic, we're seeing here, we're bullish above all three again, so that's pretty good. 34% target is what's given on both charts there. T-Mobile, we're seeing again, we're above, so that's pretty impressive, although the short term there is a little bit of bearishness. Tesla is above on all three, 131% upside target on that long-term chart. Hard to believe, nice to see if Tesla would make new highs, but that's looking pretty good. Texas Instruments, we see here, we're above the clouds on all the long and the medium term, but the short term we're not quite there yet. Priceline Group above the cloud on all three charts, good upside targets, pretty powerful. Tractor Supply Company, we're below in the long and the short term, and the medium term doesn't look that great. TripAdvisor again below on all three charts. That's not a good looking stock. Ultra Beauty, we see here short term, medium term, and long term we're above. Upside target potential of 27%. Verisic Analytics, again bullish on all three time frames. Vertex, not bullish in the long term, but medium and short term is bullish. Some upside targets, but resistance there as well. Viacom, we're not bullish in the long term, so that just does weigh on the stock. The same with Vodafone, we're seeing here we're bearish on the long and medium term, but the short term is turning bullish. Walgreens, we're seeing above the cloud on the short term, long term and medium term just struggling. Western Digital, above the cloud, long and medium term, just through recently. Upside targets of 23 and 41%, but the short term still doesn't look great. Zinlex, we're seeing we're above the cloud on all three time frames and some good upside targets. Yahoo, bullish long term, medium term, and short term. So bid speculation still keeping that going. 53% upside, so suggests that we may still see a counter bid. That's it on the Nasdaq 100. You see how quickly I could go through every single stock. Why not give that a go yourself? Download the template and then just go and analyze each and every stock till your heart's content. Just click away and let the analysis tell you where the price targets are and what the bullishness is of each stock. Give it a try.